頭集第71則場所衆生場所和所主に示す曰く汝に主張すあらば我汝に主張す与えん汝に主張すなくんば我汝が主張すをわん心情を所曰く汝に主張すあらば我汝が主張すをわん汝に主張すなくんば我汝に主張す与えん広く念じて曰くこうおのおのこの主張すを犯せよしばらく言え三軒上帰って揺れ座りやまたいなや報数を打つ Entangling Vines, Case 71 Basho's staff Basho Eisei said to the assembly, If you have a staff, I'll give you a staff. If you have no staff, I'll take the staff away. Shinjo Kokubun said, If you have a staff, I'll take the staff away. If you have no staff, I'll give you a staff. Kido Chigu commented, Each of you, throw the staff away. He then said, Now tell me, are any of these three turning phrases better than the others? He swished his whisk through the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Every day is different here. Sometimes even you enter the hallway at this end at the Dharma hall, and when you come out at the dining room, it is completely different. A very powerful lesson for us, that with each of our steps, not only the idea of where we are changes, but the entire universe changes with every heartbeat, with every immeasurable small amount of time that we can think of. We can think of all these things that attempt to address this indivisible one that we have been talking and feeling for the last days, between us, around us, in us, outside. Where not? Where not? And yesterday we were treated to a wonderful Teisho from Chigan Roshi around the circle and the continual practice. You might think that, well, after having it done for so and so many years, one has not to be reminded of this or that. But it is just as I had said about this word individuality jumping off the page, even though I have seen it many, many, many times. Whenever it happens, that what seems familiar suddenly opens up this freshness that I hope each of you has had some kind of experience of freshness. A couple of years ago, right after the pandemic kept us apart for so many, many Sesshin, we had our first Rohatsu, masked. And even that provided freshness. As I was sitting there, it came over me that, well, I had never expected my ears to hurt from wearing a mask. But there it is. And the lessons that lies within that is, fresh, fresh blood. That too. The openness to receive whatever is offered to us is very, very difficult practice. However, as we learned and were reminded of yesterday, that circle of continual practice has been churning, present, in being, in non-being, for hundreds of thousands of millions of eons. When Zen students appear in Doksan, there is a very common thing for Chigan Roshi and I to hear. My practice, my practice, and that those are the profound parts, which I cannot reveal to you, but the my practice part I think you might have encountered. And what we can learn from hearing about it yesterday, maybe for the first time, or for the umpteenth time, or immeasurable times, it cannot be brought to mind and to present often enough. This is not your practice. Do you really own it? If you own it, then you bring this corset, this straight jacket, while you're tipping your little toe into it. Don't own the practice. Let the practice own you. That is completely different. And that circle is so broad, wide, magnanimous, full to the fullest, that any small container that we try to get in there really does not provide to us what has been offered since the beginning of time. This place would not be here. We heard about all the ancestors, many of them who never knew about it. And listening to it, sometimes we might feel, oh yeah, that is so long ago. It's not that Chigan Roshi is the only survivor from there. There are human beings who came here, who are here now, who were at the opening. There are human beings who came here and then disappeared for a long stretch of time, and the call to come back. There are human beings here who are the children of practitioners who came here. Dharma children, physical children. So it's alive. And why? Because each of us, all of us, provide it a heartbeat. A heartbeat, the fire of the heart of practice. Sometimes our tears, sometimes agony, sometimes indescribable beauty. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now also we're trying something new now. I have a new idea, since I'm the new abbot here, how to maintain this place, because it's very difficult to maintain. We always raise funds, but I think I will take the approach that you see on TV shows. There are different blocks, A, B, C, and D. So we are now coming to the end of the A block, you know. And you know what is between the blocks? Oh, commercials, yeah. Now, from our corporate sponsor, the Zen Studies Society, should you leave here and forget about the circle of practice, there's nothing we can do about that. However, we can help you to remember it. The store is well stocked with your reminders of the continual practice. Now comes the B block. All aspects are included in this practice. You might think it's silly for me to hold up a t-shirt and make up this fake commercial here, but as a practitioner of Dharma who is ordained, we are called to do what is called takuhatsu. Takuhatsu is the asking for alms. Asking for alms. And it seems that this is something strange, but it is a really important part of the practice to be able to step outside of, I'm not going to go and beg or ask somebody for money. Well, we're in America here. Some people do ask for money all the time. Everything is commercialized, even Zen. Zen this, Zen that, yeah? But it goes even further. Yesterday we also heard about now. Even now is being commercialized. Yeah, right? The power of now rhymes well with cash cow. So, but going out and asking, stepping over one's pride, over that even expectation to get something. It's very much like Zazen. When we sit down with some kind of expectation in mind, it will be difficult. It will be difficult. When was the last time when you thought about something and exactly that happened? Not very often. So expectations are pretty useless instruments. But takuhatsu, holding out the openness to receive what the world, the universe, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, has to offer. Zazen and takuhatsu are not different. Of course, the practices are different in Japan. You go through the neighborhoods with one of the ajirogasa, the straw hat that makes your face not be recognizable, to give that idea you're not personally asking, the person is not personally giving. And what do you chant? Yeah, ho Dharma. Ho. And if you come back for Rohatsu, we ask the universe for takuhatsu. In the Zendo, all together, walking, chanting Ho. At Mount Bali, takuhatsu was done in the 2nd Street produce market in Los Angeles. The monk who was assigned, and this is a really strange thing, because in Japan, the donai, the ones who live in the Zendo, do, hall, nai, inside, they stay there all the time. Joju means the ones who leave, so they go out for takuhatsu. It was the jikijitsu most of the time who went. And you went down there, you had to leave early because those markets, since they sell all their wares to the restaurants, The chefs come early, and then they close maybe 5:30 in the morning. So the monk went there, standing and waiting very deliberately in the section where the Japanese farmers are. Because there are still many Japanese families in California who have farm businesses. And when it's over, they came, and if there was, let's say, a box of blueberries that they couldn't sell because the lower half was moldy, they would give it to you. And you take it, and you are very careful because you don't want the juice of the decomposing potatoes. Potatoes are especially bad when they decompose, you know. It's like a soapy substance. You get never rid of the smell. To keep it off your robes, and you load it into the pickup truck, and then it comes up to the monastery. And there, it's no matter what is happening, a signal is given, everybody comes helping unload the takuhatsu, because that is what is feeding everybody. And then the tenzo and the shoten, the assistant tenzos, and whoever is assigned, go through it and sort it out. This is still okay. No, compost, still okay. And if you have sorted ever through decomposing vegetables, you know what it does to your skin. Yeah. That is takuhatsu. I'm also sure that the monks in the early times did takuhatsu when they were by themselves, when they were wandering around with their staff. That very staff that is part of our koan today. We had an opportunity to see such a physical staff this morning. Chigan Roshi brought her staff as we walked. This outdoor ceremony today, it was a very wonderful setting with all the fog over the lake. And when we looked up in the sky, at first the clouds were just little clouds, and then they got these little pinkish kind of swirls and all of it. We chanted together. Nature welcomed us by not unleashing a rainstorm, by sprinkling us with the fresh water from the branches of the trees. And as we walked along the lake, you might have noticed how difficult it is. The other side is really currently almost impassable. It would take a long time, so that's why we decided to shorten the walk. But even on that short piece, there were holes. There are these wonderful makio rocks, you know. The makio rocks, they look very stable. And you step on them and go zzz. And that's where the staff comes in very, very handy. And you have to put it down before you put your foot somewhere. It is like your third leg. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And over time, of course, the staff and the pilgrim and what they learned on their pilgrimage in meaning became very, very close. The staff itself stands for, we can use a lot of words, and some of them are very dangerous. Shall we say Buddha nature? Shall we say awakening? Shall we say this? If I had a staff, I would just go. As usual, in these koans, let me give you a rundown of the protagonists in this setup. Basho Eisei. Basho Eisei. It sounds like the haiku poet Basho, but that is a completely different person. This Basho Osho lived in the 10th century. And he actually was a native of Silla, Shira, which was one of the ancient political entities or kingdoms in Korea. So he was of Korean origin. There were 3 of those kingdoms in ancient Korea. We also heard yesterday, in the context of the circles, of not only the Enso, but also of these little figures that were used in this treatise that is said to come from the 6th ancestor. And you probably remember it was given from one teacher to the student to the Inji, who burned it and then recreated it. The school is the Igyo school. And Basho Eisei was a successor to Nanto Koyu, who was a Dharma heir in that Igyo school. We know very little about Basho Eisei. We know that he lived on Mount Eisei. That's where he gets his name from. And that's about where it ends. He appears only in this case 71 in the Shumon Katto Shu. But of course, you might have already noticed that the first saying of Basho Eisei himself, if you have a staff, I'll give you a staff. If you have no staff, I'll take the staff away. We can also find as the Honsoku, the main case of the Gateless Gate, case 44, in the Mumonkan. It's the main case there. So that's the statement. If you have a staff, I'll give you a staff. If you have no staff, I'll take the staff away. There are many ways to think about this. And none of them is particularly helpful. The invitation here to employ dualistic thinking of have, not, give and take, all too often is accepted. How can somebody, it's easy. If I have something, somebody gives me something, well, then I have to. But if I don't have it and somebody takes me away, that's not possible. Hold on a minute. There's this guy, he plays the piano. You cut his finger off. You take it away. His future is also taken away. He doesn't have his future yet. If you go with that and you go to Doksan, the bell rings very fast, very soon. It's okay to use your thinking sometimes, but it is important to notice once it doesn't lead anywhere. So here, in this koan, in the Entangling Vines, it goes on. Shinjo Kokubun, the next person, did not really live that far, maybe 200 years after this was said for the first time. Shinjo Kokubun, he lived from 1025 until 1102 in the Common Era. He appears in 4 cases of this Entangling Vines. He has different names. Sometimes he's called Rokutan Kokubun. Sometimes he is called Ho-Ho Kokubun. Of course, he was from Shanfu, which is in the present Henan province. His family name was Zheng. As a child, he was extremely bright. very bright, and he was sent away to study. His father sent him away. And interesting here is again a connection. He was sent away because his parents got divorced. And apparently this bright child was not getting so well along with his stepmother. But it set out for him a journey that brought him to become a Zen ancestor. First he studied, like most people, scriptures at that time. And he heard a priest and the sermons, he liked him, he was impressed. And that priest gave him the name Kokubun. At 25 he became a monk, was ordained, and received the precepts. Yeah, that didn't suffice to make him fill that brightness that was always looking for a deeper understanding of that life. Why did my father send me away? Why is it that relationship that with my stepmother has such karmic influence on my life? I can really feel that, how he might have been even more pushed into this exploration by the circumstances of his life. And of course that's true for all of us. Sometimes we sit on the cushion and have the notion that we should disown ourselves from our path to this very moment. But what Zazen teaches us is that that path is what makes us be here. And although it's not easy to get to that, even if there are very difficult things in it, we develop the gratitude of having experienced them because they are responsible for our having reached this unfolding of the revealing of the truth. It's not so easy, but it is certainly something that we develop through practice. So after he wasn't satisfied, he went to a different teacher and on Mount Dagui, and he overheard a story being told there between the monks. And it is about Ummon Bunen Zenji. Ummon Bunen. Ummon says very little usually, you know. Sometimes Ummon asks questions, and when you open your mouth, before you can take the breath, he answers it already. Yeah. Here, this is one of the few cases where he is being asked a question. So an official asked Ummon, "The Buddha Dharma is like the moon in the water, isn't it?" Well, the first half was good, you know, like the moon in the water, isn't it? Looking for something here. The master replied, "No traces remain in clear water." Hearing this, Kokubun had a deep insight. And the calligraphy behind Chigan Roshi on the mountainside of the Zendo, of the Dharma Hall here, is a calligraphy that says, "Scooping water with your hands, the moon appears." Imagine yourself at the stream or at Beecher Lake and you take a handful of water and there is the moon. And as Ummon says, if the water is clear, where has the moon gone? The other half of the poem is on the on the lakeside here, and it says, and Rudin will really appreciate that.
When you pick the flower,
Yeah,
the fragrance
yeah.
in your lips.
When you move the flower, when you play around with the flower, the fragrance permeates your robe. No traces remain in clear water. The flower is gone. But of course, today we have arrived in our Zen spa here on the sauna day. So the fragrance of this robe is not the fragrance of the flower. Odio Enan became the teacher of Kokubun. Odio's school was another of the 5 main schools of Zen in China at that time. And Shinjo Kokubun is said to have left 38 Dharma successors. So what does he say? If you have a staff, I'll take the staff away. Remember what Basho said. If you have a staff, I'll give you the staff. Kokubun says, if you have no staff, I'll give you a staff. While Basho said, if you have no staff, I'll take the staff away. Some of the difficulties seem to be resolved here. Well, if I have one, you can take it. If I don't have one, you can give it. But in yet another duality of contradictions, these two masters are playing with each other. It's also a very good lesson to learn that whatever you say, somebody will contradict you and say the opposite. Don't take any offense.
No, they won't.
See? It doesn't take much. Don't think about this one either. But here comes our third protagonist, Kido Chigo. That name sounds familiar. Finally, we have a familiar name here. When you turn to page 17, yeah, right? Kido Chigo is the last of the Chinese ancestors in the Chinese lineage. So he's one of those crossover kind of jumping off points. Kido Chigo, he was a Chinese master, but some of his students came from Japan. So Kido Chigo lived from 1185 until 1269. He appears in 17 cases, 17, 1-7, in this Shumon Katoshu. He was a native of Ximing, which is in the present-day Zhejiang province. His family name was Chen. He started at 16 and studied, like everybody, scripture and Vinaya. But he did an extended pilgrimage, and then he arrived at the specific monastery, and he joined the assembly under his master who transmitted the Dharma to him. Now, you can't say it. You already said one. Who comes before Kido Chigo? Yeah, close. Unan Fugan. Unan Fugan transmitted the Dharma to Kido Chigo. After this master, he went to several others to study and was appointed to a lot of temples, successively more important. And One of the monks who came from Japan was the first one in the Japanese Rinzai lineage that leads to Myoshinji, and that is
Nampo Shomyo.
Nampo Shomyo. Nampo Shomyo. These crossings are so important. There's always an ocean involved. And when you cross the water, you know, what do you reach? The other shore. You reach the other shore. And then you discover there is no other shore. There is no other shore. But yet I am here. Let's go further. We have to move further. So, Bodhidharma came to China using the sea route. Water, water, water. From Japan to China to study and back over water. From Japan to North America. From North America also to Europe. Very interesting. Flow, flow, flow. So Kido means actually the empty hall. And the Kido Godoku, the record of the sayings of Master Kido, is the record of the empty hall. There's a section in this Kido Godoku with koans that are still used in advanced koan training in the Rinzai school. So what does Kido Chigo have to say for himself here? He says and commented to this Basho's staff, each of you throw this staff away. He then said, now tell me, are any of these three turning phrases better than the others? You know, turning phrases, a verbal expression that just hits the spot when it is said, opens up an insight maybe, is an expression of such an insight or a clear vision. What is Kido doing here? The double duality is not enough for you? Are the first two not contradictory enough? Here, throw this away. So he adds to problem number 3. And then he creates problem number 4. Now tell me, which one of the 3 do you want? Which one is better than the others? Comparison. Let's talk a little bit about comparison. I'm holding the staff. It's made from wood. Is there another word for it?
Stick.
Stick. Very good. As we heard from Kushu Sensei, humans started to notch things, probably sticks too. They didn't have words yet for what it is, but it was clear that, yeah, I have more notches than you. And that seemed to be very important. It's like a primordial capitalism. More, more, more. But what it really is a manifestation of an innate desire to be complete. And one attempt of completion is to just amass more and more. more and more. That's also true in practice. Sometimes there are certain things we learn at the beginning stages of practice. Okay, you have to breathe. No, you don't have to breathe this way. But if you breathe this way, and you employ this technique, maybe Fukushiki Kokyo or Tanden Kokyo, you do it in a way and that creates energy. And you have to feel it in your Tanden. It's very, very important to learn that. Very important. But then sets in our nudging. I'm going to keep that energy. And then we turn into energy hoarders. And somebody who really gets full of that energy, it is very, very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. When there's too much energy in the atmosphere, what happens? Lightning, yeah. And you create your own lightning storms in there. So, learning how to do something in the Zen training world is to learn it thoroughly and then have it as your nature that doesn't attach to it as a thing. When you make that energy, and once you can do it, we have to learn to give it away. We have to learn to give it away. And there's no measuring. Back to the stick. Once people became a little bit more sophisticated, they put thumbs between, made the notches in a specific distance from each other. And we ended up with a ruler, a yardstick. A yardstick. And the trouble begins. My house is bigger than yours. I am taller than you. Or the opposite. I'm the shortest one around here. I am this, I am that. All these comparisons, even with what is called an objective measure, bring us to a place that firmly nails us down in a prison of convention and ideas. The yardstick is extremely helpful when cutting lumber, when measuring the weight or the volume of an ingredient for a dish, of sewing a robe for yourself that fits. There it is very important. But when it comes to the real fundamental things in life, comparison and measurement can be a very great detriment. The lowest level of comparison is have not. If you have, I'll give you, If you don't have, I take. The duality that is set up here is the inception of our measuring mind, of our cutting mind that cuts things into, and by cutting it into, reduces it. It reduces it, and what is taken from it? Think of Nansen. Life. That means when we deal with duality and thinking in dualistic ways, what are we dealing with? Corpses. Corpses. Who wants to live with corpses in your mind, in your life? We also heard about Zenke Shibayama, Shibayama Roshi. A flower doesn't talk. And his commentaries on the Mumonkan. So I felt inclined to look what Shibayama Roshi has to say about the case 44. And here's just a little excerpt of it. Of course, he already talked about Basho saying, if you have a staff, I give you a staff. If you have no staff, I'll take the staff away. And in this context, he actually tells a longer story than what we have here with Shinjo Kokubun, but exactly the same, the opposing view, where everything in that duality is switched to the opposing side. And the master he quotes is Dai Bo Kitsu. I've tried to find out who Dai Bo Kitsu is. It might, I don't know if it's another name for Shinjo Kokubun, but what we can say is that they said the same thing. So Zenke Roshi says, Dai Bo Kitsu further complicated the matter by giving the following Teisho on Master Basho's statement. I, Dai, am different from Master Basho. If you have a stick, I shall take it away from you. If you do not have a stick, I shall give one to you. I am like this. You monks, can you make use of the stick or not? If you can, you may be Tokusan's vanguard and Rinzai's rear guard. If you cannot, return it to me, its original master. Suddenly function enters. Function enters. Form disappears, content disappears, and function enters. The juxtaposition of a staff, there couldn't be anything more rigid than the idea of a staff. And there's nothing more rigid than any concept that we carry in our minds and hearts. But what happens here? What is Shibayama Roshi telling us here? It's not just the duality that we see here and naturally seem to concentrate on, that what is rigid, namely the staff. But there is giving and taking, which means there is some kind of movement, relationship. Shibayama Roshi continues. In actual Zen training, by giving, you may take away. And by taking away, you may give. What is essential here is the live Zen truth working, not the corpses of the categorical realm. The live Zen truth, which is not at all concerned with conceptual interpretations or common sense understanding. From the standpoint of actual training, Master Bu Kitsu's stick and Master Basho's stick are one and the same in developing the work of what? Hey Buddha, is there anything in your teaching about love, compassion? No. All of it is the teaching of love, is the teaching of compassion. So these sticks are one and the same in developing the working of compassion. And we must not be bound by the superficial meanings of the words. If one is attached to awakening, the master will beat the student and take their awakening away. Of course, awakening already. A beautiful corpse. Beautiful, you know? But nonetheless a corpse. If one is in ignorance, the master will beat them and take the ignorance away. In this manner, the master freely deals the severe blows of compassion, trying to awaken the disciples to an unbound spirituality which is utterly lucid and transparent. One has to be able to read clearly between the lines the live significance of words, drawing upon our own training and experience. Otherwise, the truth of ancient ancestors' sayings will be lost forever. Here ends the quote from Shibayama Zenkai. This untransmissible life is what brought us together here. This innate thirst, innate attraction to completeness, wholeness, embracing everything is what brought us here. Of course, we all start out in a place that we experience as broken, or we would not be looking for and longing for this completion of our relationship with life, with death. Another two really beautiful corpses. But that's ultimately what we do here together. And Master Kido is so kind to let us forget about the staff altogether. He had his hosu, you know, it's a fly whisk basically. And here it is translated after he says, now tell me, are any of these three turning phrases better than the others? He actually gives an answer for those who can see, feel, and be with it. He swished his whisk through the air. I don't have a whisk, but there's also a translation that says he tapped his whisk on the floor, or maybe when you hear this sound. Where are you? Where is God? Where is Buddha? Where is the staff? Where is Dai Bosatsu Zendo? Kindness takes many different forms. Rinzai Zen has rigor in it, in its forms, in its settings, in its formalities. But I want to tell you and thank you for that each of us brings that commitment to that rigor here, so that it does not feel as something that is imposed, but it is something that we can manifest together, like on the hike. We knew if somebody stepped into a hole, they would be pulled out right away. We know when we go together, this is what Sangha means. And this commitment, the strength that you all manifest here, is what turns that circle of continual practice and makes it possible for hundreds and thousands of eons in the future to remain accessible to all. This is the last talk, this anniversary sesshin. This will not be the last anniversary, nor will it be the last sesshin. And it's a privilege for all of us to be here. I feel especially privileged to have been entrusted with playing some role in this turning of this continual practice circle. And I want just one thing to say. Thank you.